So, a little bit of an update. What I'm doing right now is I ended up determining that the looseness in the steering for the 8 series was actually the steering box itself. Um, I got under the car. I had somebody else working the steering wheel while the wheels were taut up against the ground, and nothing in the linkage is loose. The tie rods were actually brand new. The pitman arm and idler arm, everything's nice and super tight. I actually put a video out about a month ago detailing how you go about tightening one of these old BMW steering boxes, which I did a couple of times to a little bit of progress. It made the steering a little bit tighter. It started out that I couldn't go over 40 miles per hour without the steering wheel shaking violently. Tightening the wheel made it to where I could go up to about 50 before the wheel started shaking violently. So not a massive improvement, but some improvement. I ended up going to the junkyard, and I'll show you what I got here. A friend of mine told me that there was a 750i with a V12 at my local pick and pull. So I ran over, and it turned out, unfortunately, it was a OBD2 car. It was a 96, I think. It was a 750IL. And I got the steering box and the throttle bodies and the mass airflow sensors off the car. But it turned out, I knew while I was taking the parts off, but it turned out that it was a M73 car, which is the 5.4 liter, not the 5 liter that I have. So, unfortunately, not only the steering box, but also the throttle bodies and the mass airflow sensors are all completely different. So I've listed all this stuff on eBay. It was extremely cheap. They don't charge, anything for parts at Pick and Pull. So I went ahead and just bought it all. I also got a car phone. I'll do a video on that later. But this is the 7 Series Servotronic gearbox. It's got this electrical connector and this little computer doodad attached to it. Now this box is much bigger than the box that actually came out of my car. So I ended up taking the box completely apart, and what I found out, apart from the leaks that it had, is I found out that there was wear on the actual ball bearings that are inside of here. So I will take this apart and show you what's going on, just kind of briefly, because I'm going to do a full rebuild anyway. So you take this screw out. There's a whole bunch of ball bearings in here. These ball bearings ride on the screw and inside of these grooves in here. This has little screw grooves. And what I found out, I put one of these guys in my calipers, my digital calipers, and they measured out to be 6.96 millimeters. And that just doesn't seem like a round number. You wouldn't think anybody would produce a ball bearing in such an odd size. And it didn't end up being anything sensible in imperial measurements either. It was 0.274 inches. So I got to doing some research, and what actually ended up being my aha moment was I posted on the 8 series group that I'm in on Facebook, and a really cool guy named Stefan on there put together a rebuild kit for these old steering boxes. And he told me, sure enough, those balls are supposed to be 7 millimeters. They're supposed to be exactly 7 millimeters. So those balls ride on about 3 grooves of the screw this way. This way. It's 2 to 3. So if you imagine it's 3, so you've got whatever that would be. It's supposed to be 7 millimeters, and you've got 3 rows, and they're all missing 4 hundredths of a millimeter. That ends up being 12 hundredths of a millimeter, which ends up being some amount in thousandths. Regardless of that fact, Stefan told me that these balls wear out. They are a major culprit as far as play in the steering box goes. His kit's really comprehensive. It's 180 euros plus shipping to America, plus the crisis fee that DHL is charging right now. They're charging an additional 16 euros for shipping because we're in the middle of a pandemic. But regardless, it's a pretty reasonably priced kit. It comes with the needle bearings that are inside of the case, the seals, the O-rings, and 23 new ball bearings. So I'm very excited to get his kit and install it. So Stefan's kit is pretty comprehensive. It comes with 23 new ball bearings to replace these worn out guys back here. It comes with new needle bearings that go inside of the case, as well as the seals and O-rings required to reseal the entire thing. Not to mention the little plastic cap that goes on the outside right here, which you can see I cracked when I was removing the thing just because I was kind of in a hurry. I wasn't being very patient about it. So I'm really excited to get the kit. He just shipped it out today. So I'm expecting it's probably going to take 2 to 3 weeks just because of the whole coronavirus thing. I don't know what customs are like right now, if they're not letting stuff through, if it doesn't seem like it's vital goods. I really don't know what the criteria are right now. So regardless, that is the current project on the 8 Series. I am also gathering parts for the rear suspension because the rear suspension is basically all perished. Every seal in the control arms, the tension rods, everything back there is worn out. So I've gotten the upper control arm bushings, but I know there are, it feels like a dozen, but I know there are several more bushings that I need to gather before I can completely rebuild the rear end, which I will do in one fell swoop. I'm not just going to do a control arm at a time. I'm going to wait till I have everything and then just spend a weekend on the hydraulic press over here rebuilding all of it and just have it all knocked out. That way we can that way we know the whole rear end is tight, and then I can do an alignment and just basically have the car done as far as suspension and steering goes.